This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad you're here. My name is Janice Pons. I am the host on our podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspectives, Spiritual Truths. We've got our flag behind us. I love the flag. And we've got our presidential seal to remind us. It's a visual reminder to pray for our president, his cabinet, their families, our nation. Listen. Our country is on a path that's interesting, and we're hoping that we continue to do well. We want our working Americans, our fellow Americans that were struggling, to continue to do well. And there are some, we've been talking about the changes in the numbers that 78% of working Americans were living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet. And those things have changed. They've changed, and we're happy about that. And we want to continue to see those changes continue to take place, because we want everybody to do well. We do. We want everybody to do well. And so we're going to keep praying for our fellow Americans, hoping that, so it was 78% were living paycheck to paycheck, barely making ends meet. And now it's down to 65%. And so we're going to continue to believe that that's going to continue to progress in that direction, because things are turning around in this nation. So we have our new leadership. We have the elections coming up in 2026. And we just know that our country is on a path of ever evolving and ever changing. So tonight we're going to talk about something that's generating a lot of discussion in our nation. And this has to do with giving credit where it's due. And it's all tied in to our clinical perspective that leadership matters. Some people say, well, it just doesn't matter who's in charge. Well, I beg to differ, it does matter. Look at what has occurred. Let's explore this together, because leadership does matter, because we know the direction that we were going in as a country for a certain amount of time. And we know that we're going in a totally different direction. So leadership does matter. Our State Department faces its moment of truth under Marco Rubio. We're talking about leadership. Decades of bloat, bias, and mismanagement have left the State Department adrift. When he came in there in 2025, that department was adrift. Look, who, what, when, where, how, why. Understand it. Not this emotionality snatching us around. Understanding the framework of dynamics of what's happened to us. Rubio's reforms promise accountability, agility, and renewed public trust. That's his focus. The U.S. Department of State has been, in the past, has been very bureaucratic, insular, kind of isolated, not connected with people, and disconnected from the American people to meet today's global challenges. There are a lot of global challenges, and the average American is just kind of disconnected. Well, I don't want to have anything to do with that. I don't care. Well, I'm telling you what, if somebody's not connected to it, it's going to affect you. It's going to affect us all. Oh yeah, it will. So for those reasons, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced, he said, we're going to have a reduction in force and a broader reorganization of the department in this year. So that was his focus this year in 2025. He said things were changing majorly, and they have. The State Department conducts U.S. foreign policy. Why do we need a State Department? Because there's something called U.S. foreign policy, and they manage diplomatic relations, which includes advising the president, negotiating treaties, and representing the United States in international organizations like the United Nations. It also provides services to American citizens abroad, such as, excuse me, such as issuing passports and visas, and promotes U.S. interests and security through diplomacy, advocacy, and foreign assistance. This is why, listen, we had people coming in here. You better believe that he clamped down on who was getting a passport and who was coming across our borders. Marco Rubio is amazing. Stick with me here. We're going somewhere with this. These reforms should inspire hope in those wishing to enter a career in diplomacy and international relations. I talked about this. I so admire Shannon Kendricks. I think that's her last name. She is just so beautiful inside out. And this is her lane. And she's just excellent and superb. Anybody that knows her, you can give a thumbs up in your comments and everything. She's just amazing. And she embraces this. And I'm like, wow, it takes a special person that this is your calling. You have to be called to it, I believe. Above all, these people that are called to these lanes, they have to be worthy of the American people's trust and confidence. One hopes this is just the beginning of reforms that will create a State Department that's prepared for conflict around the world, agile in crisis, deliberate in strategy, and effective in delivering results for the American people. We have to key into so much, and Marco Rubio is sharp, and he's keyed in. The world isn't waiting for the State Department to get its act together. Foreign we have adversaries, guys. Foreign adversaries, they don't like us. And they're watching, they exploit, and they will exploit our division. This is why one nation under God, forming a more perfect union, us flowing together as one. A more perfect union is us flowing together as one. It's vital. This is what I promote. I promote all of us. These political parties, I want us all to get together as Americans, guys. It's critical that Marco Rubio's, it's called Rubio's Reforms, expand across the entire department by embracing peace, professionalism, excellence, accountability, community, and empowerment. Listen to those things, guys. Professionalism, excellence. This is what I thrive as a leader. Ask anybody. And I've run departments. Professionalism, excellence, accountability, community, support, and empowerment. That's me. And we need people across the board like that. It just makes for amazing environments, and we get things done, and people are empowered and accomplish things. We just do. And also this involves elevating the builders within departments and companies and our State Department. Internal resistance can be overcome. Oh, yes, that's part of the growth. Credibility can be restored. Oh, yes. And America's ability to lead in an era of global conflict can be strengthened. It had been status quo before. Guess what? It was by design. I would see things going on. I was like, wait a minute. Something's just not right. What in the world? It didn't make sense. But it was all by design. The chaos was by design. Bringing those millions of people in here by design. Trying to make us implode to become... You want to know what they want? You have ideologies, guys, people have been put in place. They want us to be a socialist, Marxist, communist cesspool. And we were on our way. Just like the Squad, they said capitalism is a virus that needs to be eradicated. So that means that with capitalism, you will not be an entrepreneur. Our posterity will not be an entrepreneur. They won't be entrepreneurs. They won't be legacy builders, building business, empires. My grandchildren will. For decades, the State Department has been experiencing bureaucratic resistance, which takes many forms, as outlined by organizations like Democracy Aid. Tactics include quiet quitting, withholding or limiting information sharing. This is how they did it. It was a mess. Excluding certain personnel from key meetings. This is how Obama, Biden, and Harris ran this nation. Stonewalling paper clearances and conflict avoidance, including brushing off individuals who are perceived to be unaligned with specific political imperatives. Leaders have vision, and if you don't, yes, they have vision, but if you can't hook up with their vision, I work for a CEO. I work for an entity, a company. I got to know their vision. I can't come in there rush out my own vision, what I want. What does the leadership want? So that becomes imperative. I'm a director, but there are about 10, 11 others who are directors. We have company goals, organizational goals. Same with the president. That's how it works. But if they have these ideologies that cripple the people, manipulate and control people, instead of us working as a team to empower whatever the vision is, there's a problem. There have been symptoms of a much deeper problem in our nation. Decades of poor management, a lack of accountability, and a culture that prioritized equal outcomes over equal opportunity and merit-based advancement. That DEI thing wasn't based on merit-based. It was surrounded white people being discriminated against. I cannot get over when I was tripped out when I found out that there were 1,000 of our fellow Americans who had completed the education and training to be air traffic controllers, and they were taken out of the employment pool overnight by the Obama, Biden, Harris cabal because they were white. And all this mess going on in our airport, they didn't care anything about safety. That speaks volumes, guys. Who, what, when, where, how, why. Long before the Obama, Biden, Harris cabal's administration's short-sighted, politicized approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, the department had already grown insular, like a narrow-minded and isolated way of thinking, disconnected and unrepresentative of the citizens that it served. They didn't care about us, guys. Persistent derogatory attitudes toward Republicans, working class Americans, people of faith, including Christians, rural communities, and those without a college degree have harmed employees from these backgrounds and eroded the department's ability to represent the broader American public and our national interests. That's how the State Department had been run. Guys, it was a mess. This includes Main Street's interests, not just those of Hollywood or Wall Street or Silicon Valley or the Ivory Tower. Many colleagues, peers, and even mentors from these groups came to believe this hostility was meant to drive them out. And you know what? They were probably right. This culture was taking it just took a heavy toll on morale and execution of what we should have been accomplishing as a nation. Even under the previous administration, senior Biden officials quietly questioned whether the State Department was truly capable of conducting modern diplomacy. It was not uncommon for colleagues at the White House to ask without irony, does the State Department do diplomacy? They're like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? The department was viewed as bloated, unresponsive, and incapable of fulfilling its core constitutional responsibilities. While officials denied this publicly, federal employees remain a core political constituency. Many would privately acknowledge deep dysfunction and a need for reform. Oh yeah, they did. They were like, this stuff is jacked up. But they win those jobs, getting that good money. Then they had the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations going on, where contractors and organizations were getting huge chunks of money, millions and trillions of dollars, guys. Then there were money laundering fronts where their relatives and their road buddies and their friends were getting positions. They wasn't even showing up for jobs. Laptops, tickets to games, and credit cards, all on our dime. Non-governmental organizations, and then you had this illegal immigrant thing, people that were running the shelters, all kind of nonsense was going on, guys. The challenge now is whether political leadership on both sides of the aisle is willing to act. Marco Rubio, he signaled his intent to make the difficult decisions necessary to modernize the department. He's well on his way. I love it. That task will be far more effective and more lasting if it is met with bipartisan support. Fixing the State Department should not be a partisan issue, but the Democrats have made it one. They held the nation hostage. We're talking about national security issues. This is imperative to our national security. One place to start is returning to what has been coined as Missouri-inspired values. You may not have heard that, but that's something that has brought up in conversation. We just need those old Missouri-inspired values like the ones that Truman brought to the White House. The State Department should look to model its reforms on what was considered as the College of the Ozarks, a federally recognized work college that grounds its mission in 5 core areas. Listen at these 5 core areas, guys. What if we got back to these 5 core areas? Academics, religion, culture, vocation, and patriotic growth. That's so good, I'm gonna say it again. Academics, religion, culture, vocation, and patriotic growth. Do you see how the enemy to our souls has attacked those areas? Our soul, our mind, our will, our emotions, our intellect, our drive, and our desires, and totally accosted this nation and teaching ideologies to children, all this sexuality stuff and all the sexually driven agendas, and hating America, and project this and 16, all this 1619, all this stuff, rewriting history, guys. Tell history accurately told. I was taught when I realized I had been lied to, boy, my mind had been effectively and strategically stolen, and I took it back. And that's when I wrote the book, Stealing the Minds of America. You can get it on Amazon. But boy, God said, you got to write down what you're learning. Because I went back to original documents. I went back to microfiche, and I was blown away. And I saw how much I've been lied to, how much I had been bamboozled. And we got a whole lot of Americans, the same thing, and it targets specific races of people, i.e. Black Americans, with specificity. And that's why they're always offended. Far too many of them are offended. Many are waking up. But guys, this is why I come on here and talk about who, what, when, where, how, why, so people can understand. Look, the academics, the religion, the culture, the vocation, and patriotic growth, that's different than all things woke. sexual agendas, DEI, where white people don't get hired as air traffic controllers because they were white. Let me tell you what, that rattled me to no end. I love my white Americans. I love black Americans. I love Hispanic and Asian Americans. I love Americans. But I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to go and put it out here, and y'all know I'm telling the truth. There had been an attack upon white Americans. Oh, yeah, it had been. Look at what happened with the air traffic controller thing. Y'all need to not have 1 ounce of guilt. Let go of white guilt. We just need to come together as Americans, guys, and leave white people alone. And if you're white and you're prejudiced against people of color, stop that stuff. Stop. And let me say this. There are black folk that don't even think. They think it's impossible. They looked at me like I was like I was crazy when I said, y'all are racist. They said black people cannot be racist. They don't believe it's possible. I know black folk that are some of the most racist people I've ever encountered. As the old folks say, they are ate up. And they don't even know it. Look, the values that I laid out here, these values reflect the beliefs of a broad swath of Americans, many of whom have too often been dismissed or ignored by the national security establishment, ensuring that the State Department effectively and objectively serves the American people while moving at the speed of relevance requires creating a new code and new core values. This is our moment to forge a department guided by the character of the American statesmen. Why is that important? Why is that important? So we can have a more perfect union. Oh yeah, this stuff is serious. I love this stuff. It's the who, what, when, where, how, why. It helps us understand why we need to even do this. So what's important? Professionalism. U.S. diplomats should be patriots who conduct themselves with competence and respect while faithfully advancing U.S. national interests and exemplifying the highest standards of public service at home and abroad. Guys, if our young people got a hold of this, we'd be a force to be reckoned with. State Department leaders must model integrity, discipline, and openness to differing viewpoints, evaluating and communicate their team's perspectives objectively and without bias, and foster a culture of candor. By encouraging constructive conflict, and providing space for grievances to be aired, leaders create environments where people feel heard. That's what I want to be. I want to be the leader of that, where people feel heard, one that ultimately strengthens the team's effectiveness and finds the best solutions. What about excellence? What about excellence in our nation? The builders and doers who are delivering every day and not just on non-mental health days. For the secretary and the president should be the model for all personnel. I firmly believe these individuals represent the majority of my colleagues serving here in our nation, where I work, what I do, and even abroad. Then there's accountability. Leadership at the top. We're talking about leadership. Leadership. Wow. Leadership matters. It matters. When you're at the top, I'll go to places and I say, God, I just want to have my little office space and do clinical things. I always end up in leadership. Okay, that's God's idea. So I've learned to embrace it and do it with a spirit of excellence. Leadership at the top needs to direct senior career officials to hold underperformers accountable. I see those, I love working with interns. Teaching them to have a spirit of excellence, how to make a difference. Oh yeah, it's a powerful role to be in. to teach them the right way, that they get it right. This may require overcoming reluctance. Oh yeah, you're gonna have reluctance from officials who are waiting for future career opportunities or avoiding their core responsibilities. That's just, it happens. Meanwhile, reform-minded employees, the silent majority a lot of times, remain under scrutiny, and little accountability is exercised for those who leak or underperform or resist implementing the policies of the president. So we're talking about on a national level, but this is micro and macro. It's applicable. Okay, what about community? It is time to rebuild a culture, guys, that is anchored in the renewed core values that can sustain the State Department's authority as the premier foreign affairs agency. Marco Rubio is stellar with what he's doing. One that is worthy of the trust and confidence of our diplomats and their families serving abroad. Equally, they represent us. Equally important is restoring the State Department's credibility by confronting its insular, that isolative thing, not being connected, ineffective and often disconnected approach to domestic concerns and the interests of the citizens we serve. It has to be confronted. One way to develop, how can we develop our community? One way to develop our community is a limited relaunch of employee organizations aligned with administration priorities. Guys, it's the priority of the leader. I got the priority of the CEO, not mine. I've got my lane, and it's my responsibility to inform them, to watch out for things from my perspective. That's why you have departments. That's why you have the presidential cabinet. They are housing and Secretary of State and Homeland Security and Defense, all of that. So one way to develop that community is a relaunch of employee organizations aligned with the administration priorities. When aligned well, these groups boost morale. Oh, I love this stuff. Encourage dialogue with leadership and showcase the department's commitment to all Americans, including working class families, Christians and veterans, everybody. Then there's empowerment. Great leadership means, we're talking about the leadership matters. Great leadership means giving your team the freedom to act without offloading responsibilities. Therefore, power should be delegated to subordinates to make decisions, and they, as well as leadership, should be held accountable for outcomes. How can U.S. foreign service members take your organization seriously if you do not set a tone for constructive dialogue and demonstrate a willingness to engage in good faith? How? Marco Rubio has mastered that. I love it. And President Trump empowers him. I like seeing them work together. This is what the State Department is about. The silent majority within the State Department needs establishment, senior diplomats, and civil servants to step up and perform far better. Guys, it's just time to grow up. It's time to be mature. The world isn't waiting for the State Department to get its act together. Foreign adversaries are watching. They will exploit us if we are jacked up, if we have division. Yeah, they will. Reform cannot be parked on the runway. We have to be in the plane. It's got to fly. We got to fix some things in midair and be ready for the long haul journey ahead. That's just our reality. And I tell you what, our Secretary of State is embracing that. For decades, the State Department has been a rat's nest of progressivism. It was a mess. The leadership in the executive may change every 4 years, but the career bureaucrats, they usually don't change. This is why we need term limits. Some of them dinosaurs, been up there 30, 40 years and won't do anything different. Hold up progress. Most of these people are hardcore progressives at best, with a few devout communists thrown in at worst. These are the people that need to be shown the door. One of their peak lows was when Hillary Clinton was running the show under Obama. Benghazi attracted a little too much attention to their liking. When Hillary got 4 patriots unalive, they're gone, including an ambassador during that messy time. He asked over and over and over and over again for extra protection. It was ignored. She and any other member of that administration was never held accountable for what happened. The State Department is a sewer and will continue to be unless Marco Rubio can seriously clean house, and that's what they're trying to do. It's tough, and they've got to get rid of certain career termites, leeches. Marco Rubio has become one of the big standouts in Donald Trump's cabinet. Oh, yes, he has. And right now, he's right up there with J.D. Vance to be future presidents. And as a matter of fact, I heard President Trump said, we've got some stellar people that could be the leaders in the White House. And he mentioned their names together, J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. Wow, that is an unstoppable team. Be it unto us according to the will of God. I hope we can carry these much needed improvements in the State Department out, draining some of the swamp around Washington, D.C. Leadership matters, guys, because it provides direction, inspiration, and stability. That's why it matters. Direction, inspiration, stability, which are crucial for team or organization success. I love this stuff. This is how I think. This is how I operate professionally. This is how churches are supposed to operate. Organizations are supposed to operate like this. Our nation is supposed to operate like this. These are crucial for a team and organization to be successful. Effective leaders set a clear vision, motivate individuals, foster a positive culture, and make critical decisions. This is how I thrive on this kind of stuff. You can ask anybody that works with me where I lead. I motivate them. I empower them. I create a supportive culture. And they're a part of the decision-making process. We talk about things. I said, we need to think out loud. They love me, and I love them. Yes, they know they're loved. They know they're respected. They're honored. You don't browbeat people. Stop browbeating people at church, from the pulpits, and in interactions, and in organizations, and on jobs, guys. It's not right. Sound, mature leadership influences, impacts that the influence of those types of leaders. It impacts everything from team morale and productivity to innovation and professional growth. Wow, this is good stuff. I love this. This is, wow, our nation, our nation, our nation. God have mercy on America, and thank you for doing it. Key aspects of why leadership is important. Let's look at that. What are key aspects? It provides direction and vision. Leaders define goals and the path to achieve them, ensuring the team works toward a common purpose. What else does leadership do? Boosts morale and engagement. Inspiring and motivating teams improves morale, improves confidence, and a sense of camaraderie. What else does it do? Drives performance. Drive it, I like that. By setting clear expectations and providing guidance, leaders increase productivity and help the team achieve extraordinary results. I like that. When I had a team, when we had 87% of the people in substance abuse treatment, a 30-day treatment program that God showed me how to set up, 87% of the people were clean and sober and gainfully employed 6 months later. Let me tell you what, that team was extraordinary. Oh, yeah. We were productive. We communicated. We had clear expectations. We met on a regular basis. It was no big I's and little U's. I empowered them. We're a team. I just happened to be the director. But it was amazing, and people's lives were changed. What else do good leaders do? Cultivate a positive culture. Leadership sets the tone for the entire workplace. We're talking about our nation, and we're talking about churches, and we're talking about our homes. We're talking about the workplace, guys. Leadership sets the tone for the entire workplace, the entire entity, the entire flow, influencing company culture, communication, and how conflicts are resolved. What about encouraging innovation and growth? Effective leaders create an environment where innovation is encouraged and where team members can develop their skills and professional potential. Listen, we have to ensure accountability. Leaders are responsible for taking ownership when things go wrong and give credit to the team when things go right. What have we looked at tonight? Giving credit where credit is due. Marco Rubio, hats off to you, sir. I salute you. I salute President Trump. Yes, I do. And our clinical perspective was leadership matters. Guys, if I said it once, I'll say it again. We were all over the place. Wickedness had tried to take place everywhere. We were out of control. But people like Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, Donald John Trump, as much as some people don't like him, the man's got backbone, and he has a focus on keeping us safe, and I love it. So we need to continue to pray. Pray. Pray for our leadership. We're one nation. Yes, we are. Under God. We can't get away from God. Those of you that don't believe in God, G-O-D, good orderly direction. I tell that to addicts and alcoholics. Say, there y'all go, talking about God. I said, that's right. If you got a problem with him, just look up with God. Just hook up with me on G-O-D, good G-O orderly D direction, good orderly direction. Do you need any orderly direction in your life? God provides it. God loves us. He has a plan for America. And I'm going to show up. I'm going to keep talking about who, what, when, where, how, and why. As we go, as Americans, forming a more perfect union, us flowing together as one. That's what that means. From destruction to dignity. Clinical perspective, spiritual truths. Guys, I believe our best days are ahead of us. If I go home to be with the Lord, I hope that these podcasts will be looked at on YouTube and wherever else and you hear my voice, and that we will grasp these things, pour them into our children, because our children are destined for greatness, and the enemy of their souls, their mind, their will, their emotions, their intellect, their drive, and their desires wants them to implode and to not be successful and be eternal victims. But God has a greater plan than that. So we're going to keep coming back. And we're going to keep talking about these things because we are great people and we're going somewhere. It's expecting us when we get there. I will see you next week. God bless you. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
We are one power, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation.